Hello, everybody. Welcome to the third episode of the Who Cares Anyway podcast, right here on Dedicated Art. Welcome to the chat. Tonight, we're going to have a fun little conversation about, well, something that I really love, and something that Kees is starting to come around on. It's a work in progress. I know. He's like, just shut up, Chris.
We'll get there.
We'll get there. So, yes, my name is Chris Dohmen, and it's just me and Kees tonight. Ryan, sadly, has a lot going on right now in college, so you know what? He can take the night off and just work that. As long as he promotes the show, I couldn't care less.
Hashtag shameless plugs.
Hashtag shameless plugs. Absolutely. Well, speaking of shameless plugs, the host of the Schmodown Reaction, Kees.
Oh.
How are you today?
I'm tired, as I was 3 weeks ago, because I once again had the morning shift this week. So I'm asleep this week. But I'm here. I'm alive. I'm ready to do this. Talking about a topic that I usually am not really that much into. But yes, you said I'm coming around on it. Last week, of course, no show. I had my girlfriend over. Yes, it was a great week. I had a really fun week. So very much, I don't regret not doing a show last week. Yeah, what else is there? I don't know. What else? What's been going on in your weeks, the last 2 weeks? Anything interesting?
Nope. Not a damn thing. Well, you know,
okay.
At the moment, I'm in between jobs, so right now is probably the most boring possible time for me. I mean, hey, unless one of you guys is looking for a songwriter or audio engineer or something like that, you know, then come at me. But sadly, the job hunt continues. But I do have a couple of interviews next week, so I'll finally crack down on that and should be done and over with. So
Should be. Hopefully. I hope so for you.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it. And I will put my foot down and say that if I do find a job, Friday nights are off the table. Because I want to be here. I want to be here with you, and I want to be here with you guys as well. So, listen, if you're liking the show, please give it a like and tweet it out so we can keep this thing going and keep it building. And who knows, maybe up the production.
Got people on.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I do actually have some guests probably lined up for around the start of the new year. So keep your eyes open for that. About some very fun topics. That's all more I'll spill in that regard.
Fun, controversial.
Oh, all of the above. And speaking of spilling, there's some blood going around all over the place. In our first ever live review of a movie. So sorry.
Oh boy,
Kees.
here we go.
Yep. So
No. Okay. Here's what we're gonna do. You're gonna review the new one, and then I'm gonna say my thoughts on the original, which I saw for the first time last week in the cinema.
Oh, okay. You know what? I'm down with that. A little audible, but you know what? I like it. So, okay. Halloween 2018 is the 11th film in the Halloween franchise, and it is now the start of the 5th timeline within the Halloween franchise.
Who the fuck keeps track of that?
I do. I mean, so, yes, and a quick little backstory on that. So, the first timeline split from the original film would be Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, where they try to take the series in a more anthology direction. The fourth film, Return of Michael Myers, was the beginning of what's called the Thorn timeline, which was 1, 2, 4, 5, 6. Then you have the H2O timeline of 1, 2, H2O, Resurrection. Then you have the Rob Zombie timeline of Rob Zombie's 2 films. Then you have this timeline, which negates even the second film and just focuses on the first one and this new one. So the setup is it's 40 years after the original killing of where Michael Myers killed like only 5 people in the film.
In the original?
Yes.
Yeah, if you count at the beginning, but he kills three teenagers.
3 teenagers, one truck driver, and his sister.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then 6 if you count Lester, the poor dog.
Uh,
Now if that
yep.
was John Wick's dog, it would have been a very
Mm.
short movie. Okay, so it's 40 years later, and Laurie Strode has played once again by Jamie Lee Curtis fantastically, I might add. She's trying to live her life. She's trying to maintain some form of healthy existence where she is trying to actually move on and live her life, but she always is prepared. She's always keeping herself mentally and physically ready for when and if Michael ever breaks out and comes back. Because that's where the original left off, is that he never got stopped. Sure, he got shot out a window, but...
He got shot out of the window, and then he disappears.
Exactly. So, we come back, and now she lives with her daughter, played by Judy Greer, who I'm not going to say is bad, because Judy Greer is a fantastic actress. I think she actually could have done more in the film. But simultaneously, this movie keeps its focus where it needs to, and that's on Laurie and Michael. Because unlike 2, which had them revealed to be siblings, again, that's not in this continuity. So here, it makes sense that now she's just ready because this dude completely traumatized her. So, of course...
It's the T2 route.
They go the T2 route, exactly. So now, he does come back. And I'll be honest, as someone who loves the Halloween franchise and has to say that has seen some of the most brutal kills in all of horror from this franchise, oh my god.
There's some horrific deaths.
There's some good deaths in here. Like, if you're going based on the grade scale of kills, I give this movie a straight A+.
Wow. That's high praise.
Yeah. Like, they're creative, of course they're gory, and most of them actually do have some form of emotional payoff. Some of them, not so much. Some of them are just meant to be, pure cannon fodder, which in a film like this, you need that. Let's be real with ourselves here. So, Will Patton, who you guys remember him from a lot of great late 90s films like Remember the Titans, Armageddon, so on and so forth. He gives a great performance as well as the sheriff, who actually winds up working with Laurie a lot in her efforts to bring down Michael and stop him before he goes on too much more of a rampage than he's already been going on. Again, I think like with Judy Greer, he just wasn't given enough proper screen time. But every scene that he's in, it counts. I just wanted more from him. Like, this is one of those rare times where I actually feel like you could have lengthened the story just a little bit more and let us hang out with some of these other side characters a tad more, which is the exact opposite of what I'll say of the granddaughter. And I'm blanking on who she's played by. Granted, it's not a bad performance because she's written well, and David Gordon Green directed her very well. I just think she had a little too much screen time, and they could have just buckled down on her role just a tad bit. So back to more praise, which yes, of course, I'm going to give this movie. The score, oh baby, this might be the best score in the franchise since Curse of Michael Myers. Best score in over 20 years for this franchise. The makeup, blood, production design, the aesthetic, the cinematography, all fantastic. Although I will say, to get back to a little nitpick, if I will, kind of like in Rob Zombie's Halloween, when they actually use the main theme, I think it's a little misplaced at a couple scenes. So
That's very easy to do in these type of movies where you want to play the main theme because it's the main theme and it's so iconic. So that makes sense.
yeah, which is like one of my very few nitpicks about The Last Jedi, but that's
Mm-hmm.
neither here nor there. So overall, and everyone's talking about there's this really big controversial moment in the film that
Yeah,
yes,
I'm curious to what it is.
well, again, I literally can't talk about it without spoiling, so
I know we won't talk about it right now.
I'm not going to say that. I am going to say I get why a lot of people had a problem with it. I get why there were issues. It didn't bother me just because for me it didn't interrupt the flow of the story. For me it didn't interrupt the progression of the character, and I get it. I absolutely get it. But I also understand why for some people it damn near ruined what to me might be the best film in this franchise since the original. So yes, big shock, and personally I would give it a 9 out of 10. And I know that's high praise coming for just a dumb slasher film, man. But oh well.
Well, anyway, in the time that I spent with Irina, I actually went to see a couple of movies in the cinema, and they showed the very original Halloween for the 40th anniversary. And I'm not a horror fan. I've never really been a horror fan simply because I've seen a couple of horror movies. They always bore me. I get annoyed by the characters because they make stupid decisions for the sake of the plot moving forward. And I was like, you know what? I just want to see if I can get into like some of these classic horror movies. I've actually also today watched A Nightmare on Elm Street for the first time. So I went to see the original Halloween, and it opens with the score, which is great. I love that score. It's a very iconic score, of course, and then you get into the opening scene where, look, I'm gonna spoil a 40-year-old movie. If you haven't seen the original Halloween, just fucking see it. I saw it. That shows enough. Like, you need to see it already. That opening scene, that was actually a big surprise to me to see that it was actually a little kid be Michael Myers who kills his sister. So, like, opening scene is good, score is good. I'm like, okay, we're off to a good start. Then we get into the movie where we see Loomis, who goes back, who goes to the prison years later. I was not really able to follow what the hell was going on, but for some reason, Michael Myers broke out of prison at that point. For the sake of the story, it doesn't really get explained to me. I didn't get it for some reason, but for some reason, Michael Myers, because that is what the plot desires, and I thought that was a little, okay, sure, whatever. Plot desires it. We get introduced to Laurie and her friends, and and I figured out pretty quickly, slashers work like this: if the characters have sex, they die after. This is just how slashers work. This is what I saw in Halloween. This is what I saw today in Nightmare on Elm Street. If the characters have sex, they die. They get killed by the slasher. But the thing is, all the teenagers that we see in this movie are stupid. They're horny. They make stupid decisions, which already bothers me. But at least you have Laurie, right? Well, at the end, she thinks that Michael is dead because she kills him, well, or at least she puts a needle in his neck. That's not enough. Of course it isn't, because why would it ever be? It's a horror movie. So that pissed me off that she puts the needle in there, but she doesn't check up on him, and she just goes away, and Michael, of course, gets up. And then it happens again in the closet. Michael once again gets up, and then it's like, okay, seriously, you made the mistake once with, first of all, leaving the knife behind, second of all, just leaving him behind, not checking up on him. So this movie once again does what every single horror movie does that I've seen. It has stupid characters that make stupid decisions for the sake of making sure the story continues and making sure that shit happens because it's a horror movie and shit needs to happen for the sake of it, which pisses me off. Which pissed me off. The movie of like it's an old movie, which makes sure that like it's slowly paced, which is I mean. I'm sorry. I know back in '78, this probably was a huge fucking thing, and everyone fucking loved it, and it was unprecedented, and it was realistic and whatnot. But I'm seeing this in 2018, and to me, that's boring. It's slowly paced. It's too boring, and it doesn't. It didn't have my attention for the rest of the movie, besides the opening scene. So I'm sorry. I finally at least gave Halloween a chance. It is not for me. Horror movies. Seriously, at that point, right after the movie, I felt. Horror movies are just not for me. I should just stop watching horror movies. Until today, when I saw A Nightmare on Elm Street,
and we will get into that.
Based on your recommendation, and actually like that. So,
and we'll get further into that.
We'll get into that.
So, Jonathan Peck, I saw you in the chat, and by the way, dude, happy birthday, man, and thank you for all the support that you keep giving us. You know, dude.
Yes.
Nothing but love to you. And hey, we heard your name on the Schmodown the other day. Congrats.
The Patreon question.
Absolutely. Although, hell, I wish I had the money to afford that. But, oh well. I'm happy with my $10 a month tier. I still feel like I'm contributing. And I'm contributing no matter what, even if I'm just giving money or I'm doing a reaction video. But we're not here to talk about the Schmodown. We're here just to give our thoughts on some movie news.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it's time for.
Yes.
And our first story, this came as a total shock to me. I had no clue. That there was a Men in Black reboot happening. I had no clue that it was already done filming. At least its main star was done filming. And who is that main star? Chris fucking Hemsworth. So, a couple details here. One, this is in the same universe as the original 3, which, that's kind of a give or take, even though I actually like the third one. But what connects it is that Emma Thompson is back as Agent O from the third one, which I'm fine with. I liked her character.
Isn't it Tessa Thompson?
I didn't get there yet.
Oh, okay.
And speaking of Marvel stars in this movie, Tessa Thompson from Thor Ragnarok is co-starring in this along with Chris Hemsworth. I almost said Chris Thompson. Whoops. That's one of my classmates from college.
This movie is about the Thompsons.
Apparently, it's all about the Thompsons, baby.
It's not Men in Black, it's Thompsons in Black.
Absolutely. But yeah, no. So then, this movie's going to be directed by F. Gary Gray, who, of course, is responsible for Friday, for Fate of the Furious, for Straight Outta Compton. Like, Kees, as someone who's seen pretty much most of those films, like
2 out of 3.
What are your thoughts on A, this reboot that's happening, B, this cast, which also includes Rebecca Ferguson, Liam Neeson, Kumail Nanjiani? Like, what are your thoughts on just the idea of this Men in Black reboot that is coming out of nowhere?
First of all, I just realized that I really need to rewatch the Men in Black movies, especially the third one.
Same.
I've only seen it once, and I don't really remember it. So yeah, I really need a rewatch on that. But I saw your movie news, and I was like, Men in Black reboot? Huh? This is happening? It already wrapped filming? Chris Hemsworth is in this test? What? Where did this come from? I had no clue. So, I mean, there's a lot of talent involved, for sure. And, like, I know I've seen F. Gary Gray's a couple of films of his. He's a good director, I think. The cast is good. The question is, did they just put all this talent together and slap the name of Man in Black on it to make cash? Or do they actually have a good story and a good movie to present us? Because I think if you do all this with like the name of the movie and the names of the people involved, I think yeah, there is a risk of it just being a cash grab for the sake of it. I hope that it's not. I hope that they actually have a good movie. I have to see anything about this movie though. I want a trailer. I want to see what they have in
Same.
store for us. Because at this point, yeah, it could be two things. It could be a great list of names coming together to make a great movie, or it could be a cash grab for the sake of it. So I want to see a trailer. I want to see something about this.
Same. I would love nothing more than to see a trailer, but on the other hand, I'm actually kind of glad that this franchise is getting another shot. Is
Hmm.
getting one more chance to make a comeback after the okayness of the third one. Because the first one is a classic, in my book
It is.
anyway.
It is.
The second one, I think it's a little too much hate.
It gets too much hate, but it's not particularly a good movie.
Exactly. It is still flawed nonetheless. And the third
Yes.
one, again,
I don't really remember
it gets too much hate, in my opinion. And plus, people should rewatch it. Hell, I did, and I enjoyed it. Josh Brolin,
I should rewatch it. I definitely should.
it's a fun time. It's not perfect, but it's a fun time.
No, that's fine.
You know, but speaking of more sequels and more reboots, sadly there's a lot to talk about that tonight, but to be fair,
Oh, what are you gonna do? This is Hollywood.
This is Hollywood. What are you gonna do? Exactly. So, speaking of sequels, Fantastic Beasts 2 has finally dropped a full synopsis of the story of the film. Which, Kees, can I be honest with you? I like this. I really like this idea.
I haven't read it.
Okay.
I haven't read the synopsis simply because, uh, look, I saw two trailers for this movie. The trailers look good. I think I'm gonna see it regardless. I've seen every single Potter movie in the theater since the first one, since the Philosopher's Stone. I've seen all of them in the theater. Most of them opening day. I'm a huge Harry Potter fan. Now, I didn't give a shit about Fantastic Beasts. I think it's a bad movie, and I don't really care for it. I do think there's potential for the second and the third and fourth and the fifth are announced, of course. But I'm gonna see this anyway, so I didn't really look into the synopsis. I just want to see this movie. It's coming out in less than a month.
So you want me to just skip this one?
Yeah.
All
Actually.
right, fine. But still sticking on sequels and keeping in theme with our horror night, with our horror theme tonight. One of my favorite films of this year, big shock, is A Quiet Place. Who knew that John Krasinski had it in him to A, be a good director, B, give us a genuinely creepy concept for a film, C, actually be frightening. You know what? I don't care that he's gone because this is a story that I really like and I want to talk about it.
No, you talk about it. I'm here. I'm in spirit.
But John Krasinski actually has now begun writing A Quiet Place 2, and he is currently set to direct and produce this one as well, which, again, as someone who likes his talent and wants to see him get even more work, especially considering on, like, what was it, like an $8 or $10 million budget, the dude pulled out a film that made $335 million.
Most
So,
impressive.
if you're the studio, you're an idiot to not give this guy full creative control to just make your movie, especially
Make a franchise.
make a franchise, especially if he can in fact be trusted with it. And I personally do have faith in him. Case, I know you probably didn't see the movie. I know you probably didn't care for it. But, like, does that give you hope that, you know, Hollywood is finally giving some directors a fair shot to truly expand on something that could be their own?
Well, the thing is, when like I haven't seen A Quiet Place, but what I know is John Krasinski, Jesus, first directed movie. He also starred in it. I think he also wrote it, and it just shows that.
And he played the monster.
It just shows that it was a passion project for him. He really wanted to make it, and apparently he made a great movie with it because the reviews have been stellar. And like when someone makes a movie that is that popular, then I think yeah, give him everything he wants because he knows how to Hollywood at that point. He knows how to make a fucking movie that sells that the audiences want to see. So give him everything that he needs because this is what you need, and especially in an age where we're starting to get good horror movies again. I mean, yeah, the past couple of years have been decent for horror movies. We're finally getting back on track with good horror movies. Even though I haven't seen most of them, I have heard that we're getting good horror movies again. Essentially, since The Conjuring, there have been consistently every year
Yes.
a couple of horror movies that were good. Of course, there's still a shit ton of crap, of course, but
Of course.
it's gonna happen. But having a period of like not good horror movies at all. We're getting back into it, and if you get someone who has a passion for this, who can make a good movie, give him the money to make that movie. Make sure that he makes as many and as good movies as he can possibly make because he deserves it,
Exactly.
and he can make you money.
Exactly. Like, it's why if Get Out had set itself up for a sequel,
Mm,
people would be clamoring for Jordan Peele to make another one because,
yes,
at least in my opinion, it was that phenomenal.
it was not in my opinion, but I get the appeal.
Yes. So, as long as he can continue to be this successful and as long as he's able to keep riding this high, Krasinski is in a perfect place for nothing but success.
No,
And
he's in a
for
quiet place. Sorry.
I like it. I like it a lot. Now let's talk about someone who got completely fucked in the ass. And he's an author that I genuinely like. I know you don't, Case. Yes, but I'm skipping ahead one story because I'm going to come back to that later. So, hey, Star Wars fans. Did you
thank you.
Did you actually like the Aftermath trilogy?
Hell
Well,
no.
that opinion on that aside. I'm calling such fucking bullshit on Marvel. Go fuck yourselves because literally, you fired a writer who would have brought you a lot of money because people bought the Aftermath books. They sold very well. For the most part, they were liked, minus
No,
the
they
first one.
weren't.
Case, just hold on. Let me have my quick
Oh,
rant.
no. You can rant all you want. I'm gonna rant on your win because I think you're completely wrong. But we'll get into
Well,
that.
again, I'm not talking about the quality of the books.
No. I'm also talking about him as a person, and I can tell you exactly why.
Okay. But the fact that Marvel is choosing to fire him strictly because of political tweets when. Okay. You did the shit with James Gunn, which I'm still not over, and I won't be over for a long time. You did. I mean, just. Okay.
Here, you don't want to know what he did? You want to know what he personally did to me? On Twitter, I was reading the first Aftermath book, and after I was done with that book, I tweeted out that I didn't like it. He, after that, went on a tear, personally, to me, saying that I hated it because of all kinds of bullshit reasons why I didn't hate it. He said, you hated it because Thrawn isn't in it. You hated it because there are new characters. You hated it because there is a gay character. All that bullshit. And he didn't only tweet that to me. He tweeted it to essentially everyone who hated his book. And he really goes on like an attack to everyone who tweets that they don't like his book. Seriously, like if you're an author, if you're an artist of any kind, you get criticism, learn how to take that. He Every single time that someone were to say I don't like your book, he would go on a tear, just insulting that person, saying why the person is wrong for disliking his books because for some reason he can't take criticism. And I'm like, well, fuck you. if you write something that I don't like, fucking accept my opinion or ignore me. I don't care, but you don't attack every single person that. And he has been tweeting so much shit over the last couple of years that yes, I am happy that he's gone from Star Wars because he writes shit in Star Wars. I've read all of his Aftermath books, which I hate, all of them. All three are shit. And I've heard that most of his other stuff. So I'm happy that he's gone because he is a bad writer. He attacks people for saying that he's a bad writer, and I'm like, oh, goodbye. I'm done with you. So yeah, I'm actually I'm upset with the guy, and I'm happy that he's gone.
I understand that, but in response to some of that, though, you do have to realize that just like with the criticism towards The Last Jedi, and that there really were assholes who really were saying like,
oh yeah, no, that's true.
That's
but I wasn't.
Yes, I'm sorry that you got lumped in with that attack.
Yeah,
I am. But he needed to say that.
No, he needed to say to indeed that, like, if people complain about the Aftermath books that Thrawn wasn't in it, actually, he got a mention in the third one. I wasn't mad about that. At the point that I read the first Aftermath book, I hadn't even heard of. I knew about Thrawn afterwards because, well, he mentioned that, and then I looked it up, and I was like, oh, that is Thrawn, cool. Also, the gay character Sinjir Rathvillas. The reason that I remember his character's name is because he's the best character in that trilogy. I loved him. I loved the character of Sinjir in the first book, out of the, or at least the most out of all the characters, the new characters that were created, and I liked them at the end of the trilogy. It's like all the things that people give him shit for, I didn't have issues with. I had an issue with the writing style. I had issues with other stuff, which I think are simply because they're not well written books.
And for a quick clarification, I did forget to mention that he was only fired from Marvel because
comics.
Because he was working on a brand new line called Shadow of Vader. It would have been a 5-issue mini storyline that, I'm not gonna lie, I really fucking wanted this story.
Oh, look, I want the story, and it's just not written by him because I think he can't write Star Wars.
And that's where you and I disagree. But hey, it is what it is.
It's what it is.
And speaking of Star Wars, now I'm really scared. I'm genuinely scared. I'm genuinely fucking scared for Episode 9. But everyone said, oh, Chris, JJ's going to be the best thing since sliced bread for this franchise. After that shitstorm known as The Last Jedi. We'll see.
We'll see.
Well, because in an interview with IndieWire, Oscar Isaac actually gave some pretty in-depth answers about what the production was like and how it's feeling, how it's going. And he used some certain verbiage that I really wish he had thought a little more carefully. Now, granted, I know for a fact that they're still sticking to the script, and there's probably not as much improv as what the interview made it sound like. If it feels a little more loose, if it feels a little more, a little more fun on set, great. That means the actors are getting into it. That means that, everybody is digging what's going on, and we might get a fun movie as an end result. But it does just raise. I'm just concerned because if there's too much improv on the set, I might get that feeling. Because although to be fair, if you're improving against Chris Terrio's script, which I know people like him, I know people really like Argo's, and yes, it was a good script. But just understand that I have a lot of personal hesitation.
Chris, let me stop you right there.
Please.
Here is why I think Oscar Isaac said that. What is arguably one of the greatest lines in Star Wars history is improv.
True.
I know. I think he said it because of that. Like, hey, remember in Empire when one of the best lines in the movie is actually improv by Harrison Ford because he thinks it makes the character better? Well, we're gonna do the same for Episode 9. We're going to like the actors themselves have done 2 movies now as their character, and heck, even like Oscar Isaac is now also voicing Poe in Resistance.
Which you can watch our recap show of that right here.
Indeed, shameless plug. But yeah, like after having been involved with the franchise for a while and actually knowing these characters, I think that the actors might know the characters a little bit better, at least the way they speak, than the screenwriters. The screenwriters, of course, know very well how these characters work and where they're going. But I think that, like, for certain moments, the actors know the characters a little bit better, and they can actually use that to do improv on set and make the dialogue a little bit more natural, a little bit better, a little bit more. I think he said it because, guys, remember Empire when Harrison did this? We're gonna do that as well for Episode 9, just to make the movie better than it already is.
And Michael Ashwood brings up a fair point in the chat. Which, hey man, thanks for checking us out. I hope you're enjoying the show. Now, he brings up that it's probably just the production crew of Episode 9's way of not having another solo incident.
Exactly.
Yes. But I'm just worried because I don't want to have to sit through another fucking firestorm that was the response to Last Jedi.
By the way, you're still going to get such a response regardless because Star Wars fans will still just be the worst.
Maybe, but maybe not. Remember, we have over a year. So, for once, I'm going to be a fucking optimist about this and actually think that as we get closer, it is going to calm down a little bit. We're not going to have as many problems. So, So with that, we'll now move on to the next story, which shall probably be the last news story of the night.
Mm-hmm.
That is okay. I'm just gonna fucking be a stupid yelling fanboy here for a minute. I hate Andrew Lloyd Webber.
What? Who?
He is one of the worst pieces of shit to ever stain the beautiful stage known as Broadway. And the sad fact is, he's successful. He is so fucking successful. Jesus Christ Superstar, Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat, Phantom of the Opera 2, whatever the fuck the name of that sequel is called because I don't fucking care about it. And, School of Rock. Fuck yourself, sir. Don't make a musical based on one of my favorite movies of all time, you cheap, cash-grabbing, talentless, pretentious piece. Sorry. Anyway. So yes, he's a musical writer who does a lot of compositions for Broadway shows and whatnot. And
I ask who? I have no clue who this guy is.
Keep asking.
I've never heard of him.
And don't find out. Unless you get roped into like a bad movie night and Phantom of the Opera is brought up, directed by Joel Schumacher.
Oh, yay.
Starring Gerard Butler.
Oh, boy.
As a singing Phantom of the Opera. And it's awful. But turns out his other biggest musical, Cats, is getting a theatrical adaptation, and here's what kills me. Genuinely good talent is being added to this flick. Genuinely good talent like James Corden, who actually proved to be a pretty good singer in Into the Woods. Ian McKellen, Gandalf himself.
Magneto.
Yes. Jennifer Hudson, who won an Oscar for her performance in Dreamgirls. She has one of the most fantastic voices I've ever heard of this generation. She is so good.
On the other hand, they did add Taylor Swift, so that's
And look, yes, but she does actually still have a good voice, despite the fact that her songs these days are complete. But
yep,
that's neither here nor there. Now you really want to just throw the icing on the cake with this one. You throw in two very, very talented actors. Idris Elba as the bad guy. And Dame fucking Judi Dench.
To be fair, I think all of these have been in some bad movies in their career. So.
They have, but here's the sad thing, dude. I just have to accept the fact that I'm going to hate this film so fucking much, and everyone's going to love it, and I just have to wallow in my misery.
What if you just don't see it?
I'm going to be forced to see it. Because I'm gonna want to write a review for it so I can trash it. Because I'm a jerk like that.
Okay, that's up to you. Seriously, I've no idea who this guy is. Yeah, it has a good cast. I don't know the musical Cats that well, to be fair, like at all.
Yeah, and that's I envy you. My high school.
Let's just quote The Matrix and say ignorance is bliss.
Yes it is. Yes, it is. But there is one last thing before we get into our main conversation that, again, I just wanted to quickly bring up. I don't know if you actually saw this trailer.
No.
Of course not. That's all right, though. So
I apologize. My preparation for the show has been not good.
You're fine. So James Wan, who we'll be talking about for quite a while tonight, his latest production work is a film called The Curse of
Michael Myers.
Wow. I might bring that up for a second later tonight, but The Curse of Llorona. At least I believe that's the correct pronunciation.
La Llorona.
La Llorona.
You're welcome.
Thank you. The Curse of La Llorona, which is a Mexican folktale dating back to like the 1700s, if I recall correctly, about a woman who drowned her children and then drowned herself as she wept. But now she comes back and kills kids. So James Wan,
This is right up his alley.
This is right up my alley. And I saw this trailer, and of course it didn't scare me. But damn, am I intrigued. Oh, this looks fun. This looks like the perfect movie for me to just throw popcorn in my face and have a good time with it. So, it's right. I was being corrected for the well, no, I thought I said just produced for the Curse of Llorona, but no, I forgot to mention for the Cats, directed by two-time Oscar nominee director Tom Hooper. He's done some good stuff.
Wait, he's won Best Director.
Oh, he's won, but yes, he has one. That's right.
King's Speech.
King's Speech. Yep. And yeah, like I said, people are gonna like Cats, and I'm gonna fucking be miserable. So less said about that, the better.
Grumpy Chris.
Exactly. Hashtag Grumpy Chris. Thank you, Michael, for correcting me. I appreciate that. And yeah, speaking of James Wan, my excitement for Aquaman just is nosediving, I feel like, sadly.
It has been non-existent for me, really.
Okay.
Like there are so many.
I'm still gonna see it.
Seriously, about Aquaman. Since James Wan got announced to make the movie, everyone has been like, "Oh my God, this is going to save DC. This is going to be like Wonder Woman. This is going to be the movie that will actually be good." And from then on, they can. I've seen the trailer. It looks okay. James Wan is good. Jason Momoa, I liked him as Aquaman in Justice League. Didn't love him, but didn't hate him either. It's not going to be a good movie. Seriously, my excitement has been non-existent. I'm going to see it, fine, but yeah, the DCU, it sucks. Objectively, it sucks. It has been performing bad with both critics, audiences, box office wise. Yes, I know there are some hardcore fans defending it. I still don't know why. You should stop, because this franchise is going to die in a few years anyway. Look forward to Joker.
It's dead next year. Trust me. Worlds of DC is done. It's done next year.
Oh, right. They had the...
Yeah, they had stupid name change.
Yeah.
Totally doesn't work.
Yeah, because a name change will save your franchise.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like, yeah, no. It's kind of like the Kelvin timeline in Star Trek, and don't get me started on that mess with Star Trek 4, because that's just not going to happen now. Period. Because you can't have a movie without Kirk. You can't have a movie without Kirk's father if you're going to do a Kirk goes back to see Kirk's father timeline. So, screw it. Anyway, now we can get into the meat and potatoes of the conversation. And, well, this is going to be fun for me anyway.
Oh, it'll be fun for me as well.
Oh, that's right, yeah, because you'll just, watch me fanboy, and you'll have a big grin on your face and be like, aw, Chris is so cute when he fanboys. But yes.
Cute is not the term that I would use to
Yeah, me neither. But, okay. So, yes, tonight with Halloween coming out, I wanted to talk about the icons of horror. Now, in particular, we're talking about slasher films and whatnot, more of the modern era of horror, because, seriously, I could talk for fucking hours about Dracula and the Frankenstein's monster and the Wolfman and the Invisible Man and the Mummy. I could talk about that for hours. But tonight...
I can't.
Exactly. So...
And I'm still on this show.
Exactly. So I had to be a little more considerate of my one available panelist tonight to talk tonight about the stuff that we actually are familiar with, the stuff that we do know at least something about, that luckily pop culture osmosis has taken over us enough that it feels that we know about it without even really seeing it, luckily. Until we finally do see it. And depending on where you guys walk in terms of watching horror films, if you're like me and you enjoy a lot of it, and admit some of it sucks, because trust me, we'll get into that. But there's also a lot to enjoy. There's a lot to celebrate. There's a lot to love about this genre and about these kind of films that are still being talked about today, that are still going. Like, there's no it's not just for nothing that all these franchises are still relevant today.
The thing is, Halloween, you said that the 2018 version is the 11th film in the franchise, right?
Yes.
Only the first and this new one are fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. The rest is all rotten. And like a lot of those movies are considered to be bad/horrible. What is the reason that people still crave those movies? Why those movies still get made and make money? Michael fucking Myers. He's a horror icon. And it's the same thing for all these franchises. Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th. Like, even though I don't care for it, I still know it. I was impressed, by the way, by myself. I do have to give myself a little bit of credit that I actually knew that Michael Myers is Halloween, Freddy Krueger is for Nightmare on Elm Street, and Jason Voorhees is Friday the 13th. I'm proud of myself because I did.
And I'm proud of you.
Thank you. But that's why we're having this discussion.
Exactly. And so, to get back into it, let's actually start there. Let's start with Halloween.
1978, John Carpenter.
Exactly. And what makes Michael Myers so effective, at least for me, is that he has the simplest motivation. But it's also one that makes him even more terrifying than your average killer. Because your average killer just wants, revenge on XYZ person because they burned him, or they want money, or they want power, or XYZ things. Michael simply wants one thing.
He wants to kill people.
Particularly his family.
Yes.
Which is super fucked up, but in a way, we can almost relate to that because, let's face facts, we have all had arguments with our family where we've just been like, God, I want to fucking kill you right now. Or our close friends where we just was like, oh, I'm going to fucking kill you right now. I mean, hell.
Of course we're not going to do that, but you've had, like, the quick thought of, like, I hate you so much right now. Yes.
And, again, to double down, like, that's why, for me, Michael is the perfect example of that. He is what happens if you wind up going too far.
Way too far.
And eventually, it just straight up consumes you. And literally, it's who you are. Now, a couple films down the road, they try to change some of that. And it works, but it doesn't work. It works to explain itself, but it doesn't work because it's really stupid. But when it comes to, especially the big three of slashers, there's basically three criteria as to why people love them. A, sex.
Yeah.
Kills. And the gore.
Yes.
Buckets and buckets of blood.
Also an iconic look.
Yes.
Like a horrifying look. Like, the moment that I see Jason Voorhees, it's like, you see the mask, and the big machete. When you see Freddy Krueger, you see the fucked up face and his hand. When you see Michael Myers, you see the mask and the knife.
Exactly.
It's very iconic. It's very memorable.
And they don't ever change it up. They don't ever mess with that because there's nothing to mess up. As long as you just have 90 minutes of whoever the killer is going around and
killing.
That's all you need.
That's all you need.
Which is the same to be said for this new generation of horror icons, i.e., the Jigsaw Killer.
Yay!
So yes, Case. Now I'm gonna let you talk about it. Like, here, talk to me and the audience for a second about why you love Saw as much as you do.
Okay. I don't know if I love it.
Well,
it's just
why
the
you
one.
like it.
It's just the one horror franchise that I have not disliked, where I've actually seen all the movies multiple times, and I'm actually rewatching them again. As I've said before, I usually don't care for horror movies because the characters make stupid decisions and the movie bores me. Why Saw is so brilliant, and it really all credit to James Wan. There's an amazingly interesting concept of the game, essentially. I want to play a game. Everyone remembers that, of course. That playing of the game, every time they up it, in every single movie they do something new with it, which makes it interesting. Of course, it's gory, and it's just like you remember that. And that concept that really, for some reason, that speaks to me a lot. And I love the character of John Kramer, a.k.a. Jigsaw, the old man who wants to make people think on their sins, essentially. They always get a chance to survive the trap, but you do have to pay a price because there's always something that, you did something wrong. And I love that idea of him being able to find out about people that they did something wrong. Now, the first Saw, in and of itself, of course, doesn't give John Kramer the character that he gets in the other movies. In 2, 3, whatnot, he gets so much more character, which is why I actually also like the sequels. Yes, there are plenty of sequels in the Saw franchise that aren't good, but every single movie, to me, has like a very good, at least good parts, and most of it enhances John Kramer as a character, and he's probably my favorite character in the franchise because he's not stupid. He is a very smart character that has everything planned out, And while he may be the antagonist in the first couple of movies, in the last couple of movies, I kind of root for him, and that's what I very often do in movies. I root for the villain, and especially in horror movies, I root for the villain because usually the main characters I don't give a shit about. They're stupid, and you know what? They can't die. So please, villain, kill them off. So yeah, I want to play a game. Everyone knows it. The jigsaw, well, the puppet, of course, that we see. Everyone knows it, but it's really Jigsaw, John Kramer, and it's always awesome at the end of the movie to see how it was all set up, how it all, how everything comes together. I already said not every movie is great in that franchise, but a couple
But
of
at
them are.
least
And
each film, like you said, has at least one great standout moment. Like for
yes,
me, I hate the sixth movie. I
oh,
hate it.
that's fair. That's
But
very fair.
that scene on the carousel, the shotgun carousel,
Oh yeah,
fucking awesome.
yes.
That's one of the best scenes in the entire franchise. Period. I mean, hell, like I was talking to Case off camera. One of my favorite kills in the Halloween franchise, going back to that for 2 seconds, is in the sixth film, The Curse of Michael Myers, and yeah, it's arguably the worst film. The theatrical cut is the worst film in the franchise. I'll make that perfectly clear. But the scene where John Strode, who's Laurie Strode's uncle, and a true douchebag of a man if ever there was one, gets impaled by Michael, then gets thrown onto a circuit breaker, and he gets electrocuted, and then his head explodes. It's fucking beautiful.
I
Like,
can imagine why you say that.
It's just beautiful.
Oh, I forgot one thing, by the way, about Saw.
Yeah.
One thing that I love about a lot of movies, the score.
Yes.
Da-da-ding, da-da-ding, da-da-ding. You remember it. The moment that you've seen Saw, you remember it. It's so iconic. It's awesome.
Which, and speaking of scores, then I want to, give a little props to
Well,
my
Halloween.
man. Come to Freddy.
Oh.
Dude,
Yes.
every time that little jingle, do, 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 do. And then when you hear the little girls start their little chant, you're just like, that shit will stick with you because it is genuinely creepy.
Mhm.
Not necessarily scary, but it is so effing creepy.
It's unsettling.
Exactly. Which also, for those of you who haven't seen the movie Trick or Treat from 2007 starring Anna Paquin,
I definitely haven't.
well, if you ever want to see a rogue in a horror movie, there it is.
No, I don't. I
That's
don't
fair.
like the.
That's fair. Oh, you don't like Rogue?
Nah.
Oh, that's fine. Well, still, you're wrong. Anyway,
I'm allowed my wrong opinion.
you are allowed your wrong opinion. But no, it's like the score, and I'm blanking on who does it at the moment, but it ties together each scene perfectly by creating further dread and creating atmosphere, in addition to the set design, the cinematography, the lighting, the sound effects, just the pure aesthetic of the film. And then you add the score on top of it, and you just get the sense of dread that Mike Flanagan was able to just bring into this otherwise could be forgettable film, but that's why it succeeds so well. But going back to Freddy, out of the big three, he is my personal favorite.
I can see why. After actually seeing the movie, I can see why.
So you know what? Talk to me about it. Seriously.
Nightmare on Elm Street?
Yeah.
Yeah. I just after Halloween, I kind of felt bad for not liking any iconic horror movie besides Saw. Not even the one that I have my other iconic horror icon about. We'll get into that in a second, but like I feel kind of bad, and well, of course the past 2 weeks have been so much horror talk over the internet that I can't really avoid it thing out. And I talked with my girlfriend about it. Do you want to see one of these horror movies just to try it out? And she was like, okay, you would probably like A Nightmare on Elm Street because it has a fantasy element to it. And then I actually asked you as well, and you also said the same thing. So I tried it out. Now, to be fair, the movie doesn't scare me. No horror movie scares me. I'm not looking for that in a horror movie anymore because you can't.
You're just looking for a good movie that is well made.
I'm looking for a well-made movie with an iconic horror villain that I can put on while playing Knights of the Old Republic. But that's the thing. Like, I should have probably also watched Halloween like that. But the difference with Halloween to me was, first of all,
I overhyped it for you.
Well, okay, Halloween was maybe a little bit overhyped, but also Halloween is about an actual man in the real world who is trying to kill Laurie Strode at the end. And Laurie Strode makes some stupid decisions at the end. In A Nightmare on Elm Street, Freddy Krueger haunts people's dreams. You cannot escape your dreams. You have to go to sleep at one point. It's like you can't avoid that. And the main character actually manages to stay up for like a week or so to avoid Freddy Krueger. And then when she eventually does sleep, they have like a plan in place. So that's like a lot smarter. Even though the performance by Heather Langenkamp is not as good as Jamie Lee Curtis, at least the character is a lot smarter written. Also, the kills were gruesome. They were horrifying and they were awesome. Like, seriously, the moment that Tina at the beginning gets killed in the bedroom, that is awesome. Like, holy shit. So, like, to me, the kills were more realistic, more awesome. Freddy Krueger is as iconic, if not better, than Michael Myers. So, like, I didn't have an issue with the characters. The score is good. The movie is well-paced, well-made. So I was like, yeah, no, this is actually a movie that I enjoy, that I like, and that I want to see more of. I want to see some of the sequels, if possible, at least the good ones.
I was going to say, and you know what? Here, remind me to remind you later, because after this, you'll go straight to bed, so I won't worry about it. But if I were to recommend you right now, I'd recommend you see... Here, you know what? I will give you the Heather Langenkamp trilogy of films, which are... Nightmare on Elm Street, Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors.
Also fresh from Rotten Tomatoes.
And Wes Craven's New Nightmare.
Which you love, I know.
Which, yes, big shock. I love all three of those movies. And,
otherwise you wouldn't recommend them.
Yeah, true. And I actually would recommend the second one. It's not as good...
I'll get through it. I can probably put it on while playing Knights of the Old Republic one day.
Easily. But for me, 2 might be the most interesting out of all of them.
That's cool. Like the thing, like the first one just has to be a good movie on its own and set up this entire thing. So it can't do too much yet because you want to make sure that the setup is good. Then all the sequels can go into more stuff. That's why 2 and all the sequels add something to it and are more interesting, I think.
Exactly.
Even though the first is probably just the best made movie, I think.
It's either the first one or New Nightmare, but yes, those are the 2 best made in the entire franchise. And that's because Wes Craven, I swear to God,
he is a horror god.
He is. Like him, Carpenter. You can make the argument for Hitchcock. Cronenberg,
and to be fair, Hitchcock is more thriller.
Yes, but when he does bring out horror, he hits you hard, which is why I love his stuff so much. And also David Lynch would be another great master of horror. And actually, even though he only did one film, I'd throw Kubrick in there. Because his one horror film is a masterpiece.
True. And James Wan.
Oh, and James Wan.
In terms of modern day horror.
Yes. Which, speaking of, I actually want to go back to Digimon for just 2 seconds here, because you like The Conjuring, right?
I thought it was a well-made movie. It's not a movie that I would rewatch, simply because the entire idea of the exorcism is just really not appealing to me. Like I really don't care for that.
That's fair, but that's also because you genuinely don't believe in that.
Yeah.
Which is fair.
Like it literally does nothing to me. It's completely unrealistic. Like with A Nightmare on Elm Street, like it's clearly fantasy, so that's cool. But with Conjuring, it tries to make it realistic while still having that fantasy, and I was just not okay with it. I really didn't care for it.
That's fine.
Possession, yeah, the possession of a body and a spirit, that like nah.
Which normally I don't care for those kind of movies either, because stuff like The Exorcism of Emily Rose or Last Rite or Priest, a lot of those very shitty late 2000s, early 2010s possession movies I don't care for. But
to be fair, all horror movies in the 2010s, most horror movies in 2010s and early, no wait, 2000s and early 2010s weren't good.
We're not
so,
good. The good ones are few and far between, much like my current favorite horror movie, The Descent, which is
I've heard good things.
Fucking stupid good. But no, which yes, big shock for anybody who follows me on social media. You'll see that my face is half imposed with a crawler, and it looks terrible. But
it looks terrible.
But you know what? I don't give a shit. So going back to some of the classics, Jonathan Peck, you actually brought up a good one, Sam Raimi. Okay, Drag Me to Hell is a good horror film, not great. Evil Dead, the first one is the only one I would really constitute as a quote-unquote horror movie, and it's in my opinion, brilliantly well made, because they shot it on a shoestring budget. They had to do so many crazy things just to get it to work, but in the end, it's a coherent film that does add suspense and has so many great practical effects. Like, it defined the use of practical effects in horror films. Of course, then John Carpenter would perfect it a year later with The Thing, but that's neither here nor there.
Or Wes Craven.
Oh my! Again, we were just talking about it off camera today, but the Tina sequence and the bucket of blood.
Yeah, hell yeah.
And
that's just awesome.
That was just fucking sweet. But going back to Sam Raimi, I throw in Evil Dead 2 and Army of Darkness as horror action comedy. And there's too much of the other two elements for it to be a straight up horror. Tonight's conversation is purely about straight up horror.
And horror icons.
Yes. And as much as Ash Williams is an icon in his own right, because he crosses too many other genres, like if we were talking about action horror films or horror comedies, then my God, he is top of the list because it's Bruce Campbell and he can do no wrong. But, and by the way, there actually is a comic run where he fights Freddy and Jason, and it is fucking amazing. But
okay,
because of course he does. Oh, that's also a good one, Jonathan Peck. Scott Derrickson, the director of Sinister.
Yeah. Hey, you.
Although, to be fair, even though he's great, and by the way, anybody who doesn't like Doctor Strange,
screw you.
If you can't bring a valid opinion, fuck off. But I have heard valid opinions, and if they say they don't like the main character of Stephen Strange, fair enough. Totally get it, because he's kind of a jackass. But back on topic.
Horror icons.
Exactly. So, Kees, you actually had a second one you really wanted to bring up.
Yeah, okay.
And speaking of crossing genres and crossing boundaries...
Yeah, this is definitely crossing genres. But I don't care. Because this is, like, one of the best characters created in a film. Because of, like... You cannot... it's very... How do you describe... Like, if there ever is a horror character that you can't fight, like a Freddy Krueger, he haunts you in your nightmares. You can't not fight that. There, like you will have to fight him at one point. I give you the Xenomorph, Alien. As I said, I don't really like the first movie. I love the concept, of course. I love the execution of the sequels, most noticeably Aliens, the best one, because the Xenomorph. And I actually think that, while Prometheus might not have given us the most satisfying backstory to the Xenomorph, I think Covenant actually does give a lot of backstory that is pretty satisfying as to how it came to be. Just focus on David in that movie. Focus on David, what he does with the Xenomorph, and it's pretty cool. But what I love about the Xenomorph, and what I love about when I see sci-fi movies nowadays, and there's an alien in it, and they kill like an alien, even in Predator, the blood doesn't do anything to you. The moment that you even hurt a xenomorph and it bleeds, it will fuck everything up because the blood is acid. And just the way that xenomorphs work, they're relentless, they're big, they're strong. They will kill anything and everything in their path to survive because that's what they're made to do. And it's terrifying. And look, I might not like the first Alien, but just the entire idea of it. You see in that first Alien how one xenomorph fucks up an entire ship with smart people. Because, yes, the entire crew in the first Alien is smart. In the second one, they sent an entire army to take out the xenomorphs, and still, most of them die. Because everyone knows how a xenomorph looks, how a xenomorph functions in the world, and knows how fucking terrifying a xenomorph can be. And seriously, the moment that you see one, you're like, okay, we're fucked. You're fucked. The person that is in the scene with the xenomorph, you're fucked, because they're so terrifying and they're so iconic. And yes, this is definitely crossing genres because I don't really like the actual horror aspect of it, but it is a horrifying creature, and it is iconic, so that's why I would definitely consider it a horror icon.
And it absolutely is. And as someone who just finds the first Alien so goddamn brilliant, H.R. Geiger,
as most people,
I know, but H.R. Geiger truly designed something revolutionary as far as what this creature is capable of doing. I mean, literally, I can't think of too much else that you could do to this thing that wouldn't make it more deadly. I can think of one thing that would make it more scary. Give it a weapon that lights up.
A lightsaber,
yeah.
Yes. We know it. We all saw the fan picture.
Yeah, that picture was just
glorious.
Fucking glorious. Like, guys, please tell Lucasfilm, like, in some future series or film or whatever, we want to see a xenomorph inspired villain, please.
Yes.
But okay, so I'm gonna bring up one or two more, in case if you have anyone else that you might want to bring up, I'll shoot it back to you in a second. But one other one that I want to talk about for just a minute. He's my boy.
He's been mentioned.
My boy, Jason Voorhees. Absolutely the most indestructible, the most creepy, the most determined, ruthless, savage son of a bitch to ever grace the silver screen. The dude has killed more people in more creative ways than I think even the Black Death possibly could. Like, if it was possible, Jason Voorhees would be the Black Death, the Black Plague that runs all over the world and damn near annihilates us all. Like, if there was a real-life Jason Voorhees, humanity would be fucked.
Yeah, probably. If there would be a real life Michael Myers or Xenomorph or Freddy Krueger, we'd all be fucked.
Oh yeah, we'd be totally fucked, plain and simple. But with Jason, there's almost a sense of tragedy to him because for those who don't quite know his backstory, in 1958 he drowned in Camp Crystal Lake because the camp counselors were too busy fucking to pay attention to the fact that one of their campers was drowning.
Yeah, because they always fucking slasher movies.
Of course.
And then they die.
Which is what happens.
It's just what happens.
Now, and there are a lot of people who actually think that it's Jason who goes around and does the killing in the first film, but it's actually not. It's his mother, Pamela Voorhees, played actually quite brilliantly by Betsy Palmer. For those who haven't seen the first film, I only say I know I'm trying to pretend that there are other people here who haven't seen those movies. Kees.
We all know you're talking about me.
I'm trying to be nice about it.
You don't have to sugarcoat it.
I mean, and that's the thing. It's like the Friday the 13th films are great because literally, like, when people say just shut your brain off and enjoy the flick, this is the kind of crap they're talking about. Because yes, there is not a single certified fresh film in the Friday the 13th franchise.
Besides the first one. First one is 61%.
That's not certified fresh, but.
Oh, right. Certified. Yeah. Okay, my bad.
That's all right. It's all good. It's all good. You know, and there's a reason for that because it's all crass, it's all crude, and I mean, Kevin Bacon gets an arrow through his throat in the first film. Do you really think that's high art? No, it's not high art. But my God, is it entertaining because it's the franchise that perfected the boobs, kills, and blood trifecta. Except for, ironically, in a film called The New Blood, because the MPAA decided to have a field day with that film and took out pretty much every gory shot in the film, which...
Aww.
Fuck you, MPAA. Because literally, a lot of that stuff, which I've seen very rough cut with the gore attached, oh, dude. Those kills. One of the iconic ones from the film being where Jason grabs a girl who's in her sleeping bag and throws her against a tree several times. And of course, there's blood everywhere. But in the MPAA, after they handle it, she's thrown against the tree once and pretty much no blood. Fuck you. So, but that's why, you know, I have to be a little more, you know, open to just be like, just enjoy these films for what they are. And actually, sorry.
What I'm gathering is essentially that if you, like, out of all the horror movies, if you just want to see some gruesome deaths, like one person killing a shit ton of people in the most gruesome, creative ways, you should watch Friday the 13th.
Yes.
Cool.
I prefer to think of Friday the 13th as sort of like the original Saw films.
That makes sense.
It's just Jason's not as interesting as Jigsaw.
That's fair.
But they make up for it with, in my opinion, a slightly more entertaining film. Whereas Saw is by far the better. Saw is by far the better premise. It's the better execution.
It's different.
Yes.
It's just in Saw, it's a lot like the person doing the killing is a lot smarter about it and just doesn't go out there by himself with a machete and a mask. That's what Jason does. Exactly,
and you know, it's because that's what he's just built to do.
Yes.
And that's what makes him so awesome. Which actually does bring up a fair point, Jonathan Peck. Thank you for bringing this one up. That being Ghostface from the Scream franchise. Now, I'm actually not going to get into that just because, Case, I genuinely do want you to discover those films just on your own, organically.
I won't. I will never do that. I already know I won't. I'm sorry.
Okay. Fair enough. But and then Pennywise from It, which okay, he does bring up a fair point that if Pennywise from It was a real thing, yes, again, just like with Freddy or Jason or Michael Myers, we'd all be fucked. But I just want to close out one last point on Jason before I do throw it back to you. If there is a franchise that I do think should not ever actually be given a full reboot, it's Jason. Don't do it, because forgive me for how I had to say this, everybody, but if you were to bring back Jason, all that you would be doing is you'd be forcing the audience to watch it through 2018 eyes, and the concept only could work back then. The concept of Jason could only work in the 80s when that was just the norm. Nowadays, Friday the 13th just wouldn't fly. And that kills me to say that. But that's the simple truth. Is, as part of progressing as a society, we have to learn to let go of a lot of these classics, and that fucking kills me.
Okay, so now I have a question for you, because you chose Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees as your most iconic ones.
Yes.
What about Freddy versus Jason?
That was made in 2003, and I'll be honest, even by then, it didn't work as well as it could have. Because the sequences of Freddy and Jason going at it are fucking awesome. The problem is, pretty much everything else about the movie is not as strong. The characters are way more annoying than they have any right to be. The kills, while still good, they're a little imbalanced because it's more Jason just killing everybody, and Freddy only literally gets 2 kills in the movie. And that bums me out. And if you actually pay close attention, people would get pretty fucking upset about how, especially in towards the later era of a lot of the horror icons, the Michaels and the Freddys and the Jasons, you'll actually notice that it's a lot more dudes who get killed than women, and the women that do get killed are always killed because XYZ sleazy reason. And again, which is also why it bums me out that we're never going to get these kind of films again.
We still have a lot of them to look back at.
Exactly. And I'll be honest, maybe it's just because of nostalgia. I refuse to look at these movies with 2018 eyes. I really do.
Because if you do, you will not enjoy them.
Exactly. And I...
Like myself. I'm sorry.
And dude, and that's fine. Like, because in a way, you kind of should. So that way you can learn how to actually move forward successfully and not be completely stuck in the mud about, what to do with a big franchise like this. And to figure out why it failed back then and why it might fail again now. It just sucks for me because I want some of these movies to come back. I want them to be successful, but especially given all this stuff with the Me Too movement, which I 100% support. I 100% support that movement, but if it comes at the cost of, my favorite franchises not coming back as the way that they were, it's the price that I have to pay, but I'll bear it. So, one last one, and I just want, because I need to give this guy just a quick shout out, that being Pinhead from the Hellraiser franchise. Just a quick shout out as far as just how iconic it is, because just like with Michael Myers, they just released their 10th film this year, and while the Hellraiser films aren't as good, obviously, or as well known as your Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Streets, there is a big dedication of fans that admire what they do. And I also have to give a quick shout out to arguably the truly first character to do all this, and that is Leatherface from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Because that movie was at 1973. And I will say, while Leatherface is not as quote-unquote memorable as Michael, Freddy, and Jason, he did a good job of establishing a blueprint that Michael later perfected, in my opinion. So, luckily, guys, this will probably be where we start to wrap this up. Kees, if I've said it once, I'll say it again. I am genuinely proud of you that
Thank you.
That you're starting to be a little more open-minded. And guys, I'm still just over the moon that he actually liked Nightmare on Elm Street.
I can imagine that. Yeah, for the past couple of years, it has been increasingly difficult for me to kind of avoid these horror movies. To be fair, like, the entire thing about celebrating Halloween is very American. We don't have it here in the Netherlands. So for me here in the Netherlands, you don't really see anything about it. But like, of course, I'm very active on online on Facebook and whatnot, and I see all you guys freaking out about Halloween and all these horror movies, and I'm like, while I don't really care for them because, as I've said, I am mostly bored and annoyed by them, and I am not scared by them or in any way. I still do want to give them a chance, and I am giving them a chance now. I am trying them out to just see what the fuss is about. Some of them I will not like, and I will forever accept that I will not like them, and you have to accept that as well, because I'm sorry, it's just my taste, my personal movie taste. But hey, at least there are a couple of horror movies that I like Saw, and now actually, yes, A Nightmare on Elm Street. And I actually want to consider Friday the 13th maybe at one point as well. We'll see. So, yeah.
Yes, and just to give my final 2 cents. Yes, big shock. This is a genre that
it's controversial.
It's controversial, and it needs to be, because what horror does, in my opinion, that's so brilliant. It shows us what the best and worst of mankind can do. I mean, take a look at Nightmare on Elm Street. It's actually based on a true story. It's based on... Wes Craven was inspired by the deaths of this Japanese couple that died in their sleep unexpectedly. And apparently, according to a neighbor who heard them thrashing around and screaming in their sleep, and then they randomly died. So he just thought, well, what if there was some boogeyman who was responsible for all that? And that's where we got Freddy Krueger. Or take Jaws, for example, which was based off of 5 real shark attacks that happened in the summer of 1916 off the coast of New Jersey. You know, horror films reflect what we're going through, either on a personal level or on a political level or on a spiritual level or on just the level of humanity's existential level. You know, Get Out. That was very much a response to the 2016 election. Now, how you feel about, you know, whatever your political leaning is, we'll save that for a future episode when we can actually talk about it, and I'll have guests for that, whatnot, whatever. But there's a reason these movies exist, why they need to keep existing, why they need to keep getting better. Because like Kees said, we are in a boom for horror films. Like literally over the last 2 years alone, from 2016 to now, the good horror films have far outweighed the bad ones. Not always financially, but in terms of quality and quantity, yes. I mean, holy shit, going back to Get Out, it was nominated for Best Picture. That hasn't happened in years.
Even more impressive, it won screenplay.
And it won, exactly. And its lead actor was nominated. Its director was nominated. Like, this genre is finally getting some just dues. But that's because there's also a lot of effort that's going into it, because these directors and these writers are being inspired. So, guys, please keep this genre alive, because you want to know what it does. It keeps film alive, because whether or not you want to accept it or realize it, horror and comedy are the two oldest genres of film.
Also most divisive.
Exactly. But that's why they're still around. Because as soon as something goes wrong, we fix it. So everybody, thank you for participating in this conversation with us. And Kees, I'm going to be saying this a lot, but dude, thank you again for A, actually wanting to be on this show, and B, like trying to give this a bit more of a shot.
Yeah, I at one point just have to stop watching Star Wars over and over and over again. But
that's true.
Yeah, it's like I keep hearing about these movies every single year, and as I said, it has been increasingly more and increasingly hard for me to kind of avoid it. So I wanted to give it a try, just to see if I like these will never ever will there ever be a horror movie in my favorite movies. Like even Saw, which I love, I only give an 8.5 out of 10 because, well, I think it has issues, and it's like the typical horror tropes that come back in the movies. But I still like them, and I can rewatch them every once in a while. And exactly. I think what I'll do with the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, but I might just put them on and look them up and put them on. We'll see about that.
We'll see about that indeed. And as we close out, where can the good folks find you online?
On Twitter at Dutch Movie Guy. Also in a few hours, I hope, with our Schmodown reaction to the latest match. Which, holy shit, that was a great match. So check out the reaction. And Kees Cornelisse on Facebook, if you can figure out how to spell that. It's probably in the description somewhere.
Absolutely. If you guys want to see Kees almost cry, make sure you check that match. Check out that reaction. It's fucking gorgeous. And you guys can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Stardust at Skywalker Dohmen. You guys can follow this very channel, dedicated to art, on Twitter, Instagram at D28 Channel. Please like us on Facebook. And thanks once again for everybody here, and for Ryan McLellan. I'm Chris Dohmen. We'll see you guys next time. Take care!